Before we get into the video, once again, if you guys like the content to provide here for the NHRA, then be sure to subscribe to the channel today so you don't miss any of the upcoming content as we continue to ramp up our coverage of the NHRA Mission Foods Drag Racing Series, including the countdown to the championship. So if you want to keep up to date with what's going on in the series, then subscribe today so you don't miss any of the upcoming videos as we ramp up, looking forward to Pomona. And without further ado, let's get into the video. The NHRA has announced a new first-of-its-kind substitution clause aimed at helping its female drivers who decide they want to start a family. The idea was spearheaded by Leah Pruett as well as other female racers such as six-time champion Erica Enders, Angie Smith, Jasmine Salinas, Zetterström, and Julie Natass, and addresses a long-time challenge and concern many female racers have had to make a decision about when it comes to their careers as well as their health, and now allows the opportunities for female racers to return to their driving roles mid-season and compete for a championship. This article was posted yesterday on NHRA.com by National Dragster's Phil Burgess, who, if I'm correct, was announced last week was going to be inducted into the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame in 2025. So first off, congratulations to Phil on that. I'm going to post the full article down below so you can read it for yourself. Slowly but surely, I'm going to start working through some of the quotes of this, and then we can explain exactly how this rule works, because I've seen a couple comments on this. We'll address that, and then we'll look forward to what this could mean in the future and how this could have shaped things in the past if this rule was presented. So, to kick off, the first quote was from Leah Pruett, who said to NHRA.com, "I was looking at my own situation a couple years ago after I got married and knowing that I wanted to have children. It was a very uneasy time when you have something you've done your whole life, which is to concern yourself with your team, your partners, your fans, and everything surrounding racing. I had to make what I considered one of the hardest decisions of my entire life, and that was to not race in 2024. I was having to make those decisions and have hard conversations with my team. I had just signed on to be their driver and just came to the closest I had ever been to a world championship. I felt I'm not the only person that has felt this or is going to feel like this. Something needs to change. I was very open and transparent about what all the possibilities are that females would be going through, whether it's being able to even sit in a race car and fire it up. Early this season, NHRA consulted with its Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Phil Service, and various experts, including Dr. Peter Weiss and Dr. Carolyn Alexander, to address the intersection of drag racing and pregnancy. They held a call with the female racers to discuss their preliminary thoughts and findings and provide a forum for questions on pregnancy and fertility. Dr. Alexander and I were honored to collaborate with the NHRA and its women racers to develop this policy. NHRA's forward-thinking approach ensures that its women racers can compete safely without being disadvantaged by pregnancy or fertility-related concerns. The NHRA took it upon themselves, invested their time with many doctors and OBGYNs across the country to get the professional opinion with the sport, to come out to the races, do the research, and they spent quality time on this policy, said Leah Pruett. Initially, NHRA proposed that female racers would earn points for the season even if they only participated in a single race. However, the coalition spearheaded by Pruett advocated for a more balanced approach. They proposed a system where the points from both the pregnant racer and the replacement driver would be compared, with the higher total being counted towards the season championship. The first draft was absolutely way more generous. Myself and Erica and Andrew tried to put ourselves in our competitors' shoes and go, what is this? We didn't want anyone to think it's not fair, that it's not right, and how would we feel? So we said, no, I think it should be who gathers the most points. If I start the season and I end up pregnant in May and Tony came in and finished the season out for me, and he's in the countdown and went through the pressure and everything that it takes at the end, he should be the champion. If I gather more points and somebody come in and finish the season for me, but I did the majority of the heavy lifting well, then it would be in my name. And we all agreed that's where it should be. It not only identifies that motorsports are becoming more diverse, but acknowledges that women are not just competing, but we're winning national events and winning world championships. They are building our careers on it, but no one ever acknowledged that the one thing that really stops their career, and this speaks to that, Leah Pruett said. I really hope that this policy not only changes what happens on the track in regard to female racers, but changes the conversation in the boardroom to better prepare for stronger relationships. I really want to acknowledge Glenn Cromwell, Josh Peterson, and Dr. Service for their help to navigate it through. And a better tip of the hat to Richard Freeman Jr., encouraging me to pursue this. I look forward to this new policy making a positive impact on the women in motorsports as a whole, short-term and long-term. Now, for how exactly this new rule works, NHRA has laid out the guidelines for how to get this approved, how this will work, how the points are tallied and compared on who gets to earn the points, and how exactly a female driver can come back to competition if they so decide to midway through the season. The rules outline as following. If after having participated in one or more races after the start of a season, a participant who is pregnant or undergoing fertility treatment in advance of pregnancy wishes to start participating as a result of her pregnancy or fertility treatment, the following rules will apply. 1. Upon submission and NHRA acceptance of a pregnancy verification letter signed by the participant's OBGYN provider, the pregnant driver may be replaced by a replacement driver. 2. The replacement driver must have proper credentials and meet every entry criteria. And 3. For the purposes of the series championships, A, if the replacement driver earns fewer overall points than the driver who stopped participating as a result of her pregnancy or fertility treatment, all series points earned by the replacement driver will be credited to the driver who stopped participating as a result of her pregnancy or fertility treatment. And B, if the replacement driver earns more overall series points than the driver who stopped participating as a result of her pregnancy or fertility treatment, all series points earned by the replacement driver will be credited towards the replacement driver. 4. For purposes of calculating the points earned by each driver for this policy, NHRA will count only those points earned by each driver in connection with the Mission Foods Drag Racing Series events, including the qualifying bonus points, but not including points earned in specialty races such as the Mission Foods Too Fast, Too Tasty Challenge. Points credited to a driver as a result of points adjustments for the countdown to the championship will not count for purposes of this policy. In the event the replacement driver and the driver who stopped participating as a result of her pregnancy or fertility treatment earn the same amount of points, the driver with the most rounds won during the regular season will be credited all series points. And lastly, any event prize monies will be paid to the payee as designated on the original entry form. So basically, how this rule is going to work, let's put it in context of what we're seeing right now with John Force and Jack Beckman. If you watch back to the Jack Beckman interview we did back at Indianapolis before the U.S. Nationals, he alluded to the fact that the old rule that they had in place where a driver can earn points for up to 8 races really benefited Jack in being able to get back in the car. If this rule was in place right now, the way it would work, say John got out of the car, Jack gets in. If Jack earns more points than John, rather than it being John's championship, it is now considered Jack Beckman's championship. If John earns more points and Jack doesn't, Jack's points gets tallied to John's points like it is right now. John will be credited towards the championship. If they're tied, it depends on the round record going into that event. And then as well, it mentions the exclusion of points. So basically, the qualifying points you earn for low ET and number 1 qualifier, so forth. So the top 8 points that you get, those will count. But the points that you get from the Mission Foods Too Fast, Too Tasty Challenge, which takes place on Saturday for qualifying weekend, those won't count, as well as the points reset that happens after the end of the regular season, where drivers go from about 1,300 points to 2,200 points to adjust for the countdown, so that way they can be separated. Those points that they earned from that will not count towards that. Now, like I said at the beginning, the NHRA also addressed a very interesting concern when it comes to drivers coming back and how that can shape how a winner wins the championship. Now, in terms of returning to participation, it states as the following. If, at the start of a season, a participant chooses to refrain from participating in drag racing or is not authorized to participate in drag racing in each case as a result of a recent pregnancy, then the following rules will apply. 1. If the original participant, i.e. formerly pregnant participant and medically cleared to participate, competes in one or more national events prior to the first event of the countdown to the championship, all points earned by the replacement driver will be credited to the original participant. 2. If the original participant does not compete in one or more national events prior to the first event of the countdown to the championship, then all points earned by the replacement driver will be credited to the replacement driver. So how that rule is going to work, say Leah comes back at Indianapolis, gets back in the car, and she goes into the countdown to the championship and finishes the season. In that case, Leah will be credited the points for Tony Stewart. But if she comes back at Reading and continues the season, the champions points will be earned towards Tony Stewart's total instead. Basically, it's to prevent a situation where there's a super sub that comes in towards the last few races of the season, and then they can go out there and win a championship. So that's actually a pretty interesting idea that I will applaud NHRA and the women who were involved in this, if they were in fact the ones that thought of this. Overall, I think this is a great idea. Like many people said, this is groundbreaking. I don't know of anywhere else in motorsports where they even thought of this idea. NHRA itself has pretty much more women drivers than basically any other form of professional top-level motorsports in the world. The only one that even comes close to it is that of the World Endurance Championship and the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, so basically the GT categories of motorsports. This is a great idea. I love it on all fronts. I think this is a great move by the NHRA, and I applaud not only NHRA, Glenn Cromwell, Dr. Surface, everybody involved with this, but as well, a huge applaud should be given to the women involved who have gotten this deal done. Those are the likes of Leah Pruett, Erica Enders, Angie Smith, Jasmine Salinas, Zetterström, and Julie Natass. Great applause to them for being able to go out there and spearhead this idea to get this done, because again, it's first of its kind in any form of motorsports, and that is something that can be very much celebrated, because what many people have talked about in regards to this rule is if we had this rule in place back around 2010 to the mid-2019s, how could this have affected the history that motorsports went on? That including, of course, most famously, the two Force sisters of Ashley Force Hood and Courtney Force. If you don't know it, back in 2011, Ashley Force Hood announced that she was going to be stepping away from racing for at least one season, as at the time she was expecting her first child with her husband, Danny Hood. Coincidentally, history kind of repeated itself, because at the end of 2010, Ashley finished 10th in the points, the same position where Leah finished at the end of 2023. And they both basically said the same thing. They're stepping away, but they're not fully retiring. Ashley talked about coming back. She let her license expire at the end of 2012. In 2014, she did come back to renew her license after the Florida Wide Nationals in Las Vegas. And many thought, is she making a return? She told Competition Plus at the time that she was only getting her license renewed in case of an incident where a driver got sick or injured. She could be available to replace the driver. Right now, she still holds an executive role within John Force Racing, primarily, I believe, on their social media team. And on all accounts, she does a great job over there, as well as her team. Shout out to those guys over there. And then as well, Courtney Force. Courtney Force retired at the beginning of 2019. At the time, if I'm correct, she was not pregnant, but she stepped away to spend more time with her family, to be able to start a family after she had been married to Graham Rahal already for 4 years. She did not call it a retirement, but she did say she was stepping away, but didn't want to call it a retirement in case she did decide later on that she wanted to come back. But in both of their cases, they both had to make the same hard decision that Leah Pruett made, but both decided they were ready to just step away and become a family and I don't want to say stay-at-home mom, because they're both still involved heavily in the sport, but they both decided to step away from the driving role. They're both ready to step away. So would that have changed their decisions? Again, I'm not them. I don't even have to make the same decisions that they do, but I'm not 100% sure, because of the fact that they seemed pretty sure both at the time in 2011 and even 2019 that they were willing to not come back. Courtney Force said in May of 2019 to ESPN's Deb Williams, being a female in a sport like this, if you want to take the next step, obviously with family, you have to make a hard decision. It's kind of a bummer for sure, but at the same time, it's going to be one of the greatest things ever, I hope. It's not easy, but I have the full support of my entire family. They knew it wasn't easy for me to make this decision. I think it's the reason everyone's so supportive, my husband included. He was supportive of me. he was supportive of me whether I wanted to stay in that race car or step out. He was supportive of the timing of it, and I needed that. It wasn't easy to get out of the car, and I definitely missed the driving part of it, but the travel and everything takes a toll on you. So you can see there, she was pretty, I would say, confident in her decision to step away. It wasn't so much stepping away and then deciding to come back. It was just at that time she seemed ready in her life and in her career to be able to walk away from it and be happy with what she had accomplished. Same for Ashley. They both still are heavily involved in racing. Ashley still, like I said, involved with JFR. Courtney still involved traveling with Graham Rahal to the IndyCar races. You routinely see her on the grid, especially during the month of May at the Indianapolis 500. I remember being in Chicago for the Route 66 Nationals and watching. I was like, oh, hey, there's Courtney, while watching John on the racetrack. So would this have changed history? Probably not, but regardless, you cannot understate how important a rule like this is in the NHRA. And it goes back to the whole thing of talking about how impressive it is, of how diverse and how open-minded the NHRA is when it comes to decisions like this. Because if you look back in history to what Shirley Muldowney had to go through to get to the point where she was, to go from then where she wasn't even allowed into the series by NHRA, she had to fight to get her way into the series, to now them being open enough to make decisions like this. It just goes to show that in the almost 75-year history of the NHRA, it has taken a complete 180 to where they are now kind of the leader in the diversity program in motorsports. So, again, this is a great announcement. Huge fan of this, huge supporter of this. Kudos to everybody involved. That is going to wrap up our video here for this. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will be back this weekend as NHRA heads to Charlotte for the Carolina Nationals as we get set for round 2 of the countdown to the championship. So if you want to keep up with what's going on there as we continue the fight for the championship, then be sure to subscribe today to the channel so you don't miss any of the upcoming content. Also be sure follow me on the social media pages down below at Mighty Mac 03 on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And again, until the Carolina Nationals, this has been Mighty Mac. We'll see you next time.